Hi, everyone. Welcome to It Takes a Village, our first panel discussion of our Black History Month events themed Passport to Our Community, Revolutions in Rhythm and Movement. I am Kristen Carter Porrette, one of the co-founders of Djoli Kelen Inc. and the company's CEO. Djoli Kelen is an intergenerational nonprofit a cultural social arts collective, preserving, highlighting, and using the transformative power of African and diasporic dance, music, history, and culture. In the Bamana language, Djoli Kelen means one blood. We embody the notion of one blood in every sense of the word by openly and lovingly sharing the various elements of our culture. Our mission seeks to preserve, to highlight, to document, to honor, and educate on the legacy of those cultural icons who have shaped African cultural and performing arts in the US, to advance African cultural arts and performing arts and those of African diasporic dance, music, and culture as a means of healing, economic development, and community building. We cultivate and mobilize the next generation of African cultural leaders in the performing arts. We produce technical and creative dances, performances, education, and quality programs with an emphasis on transformation and leadership that incorporates a common core standards and works to build a better community by strengthening and improving relationships and becoming agents of social change through the engagement of those who share and support our mission, purpose, and organizational perspectives. Our panel discussions are being produced by Sulé-Joel, the founder and executive producer of Whole Heart Productions. Our discussions are centered around the book Hot Feet and Social Change. As you listen to this evening's discussions, we'd like for you to self-reflect on the following book excerpt found on page 6 of the introduction. Dance is not merely for performance, but rather a participatory means through which communities are able to embody and demonstrate their values in a physical space. African dance is thus a social institution predicted on mobility, an institution established to reward innovation and tradition, to revere generosity and inclusion, and to value the respect for elders, ancestors, cosmological spirits, and cosmological spirits. By centering Africa in our identities and disclosures, here we empower ourselves and affirm the reality of the African continent with its more than 50 countries. It is a mammoth site of creativity, intellectuality, spirituality, and artistic brilliance, as well as historically and miraculously targeted productivity. We understand, yeah, that's a loaded statement. This is a loaded statement. But we believe this is a great starting point to begin our panel discussion. Without further ado, I am happy to introduce our moderator for this evening, Dr. Esailama. Dr. Esailama-Diouf is an arts and culture advisor at the San Francisco Foundation and co-editor of Hot Feet and Social Change, African Dance and Diaspora Communities. She began her professional career as a performing artist with Daimuna Kura, West African Dance Company in 1989 in Oakland, California. As an artist and scholar, she has lectured throughout the United States and conducted long-term teaching and performance residencies in India, Netherlands, South Africa, Senegal, Barbados, and Trinidad and Tobago. Much of Dr. Artry-Diouf's work as an arts administrator, scholar, advocate focuses on systemic change for cultural artists in the 21st century and global. Without further ado, here's Dr. Esailama.
Greetings and thank you, Kristen, and thank you, Sule, producer. And I would like to just take this moment to bring on all of our distinguished panelists who I'm honored to be here with tonight. So I ask everyone to please join us, join the Bantaba, as Baba Chuck would say. Is everyone here? Beautiful, beautiful. All the beautiful faces coming. Nice, nice. So I just, I feel like we were all talking earlier, and one of the things that came to my mind before we jump into the questions is I want to first honor Mama Kariamu Welsh and Mama Yvonne Daniel, who we co-authored this book, and it was definitely a journey that we took, and pay homage to them, and they are here in spirit with us this evening. And thank you to those panelists who are coming from so many different parts of the world, from West Africa, Mali, and Conakry, Guinea, and Oakland, California, and New Orleans, just hailing from New York, hailing Atlanta, hailing from so many different places. And all that comes with you all your Eguin and ancestors that come with you. We just say thank you, and we appreciate you taking the time to be here with us this evening. So let's just jump into it. There's a movie I love called Love and Hip Hop. And one of the questions that the interviewer always asked, when and where did you first fall in love? So I asked each of you, when and where did you first fall in love with African music and dance? And we'll go with solo, Suleiman.
Esailama. I just want to say hello to everybody first before I say anything. But I would love to give the first speak to the Mama Naomi to speak, because I can't take it.
Right. Okay, right on.
I would give it to Mama first.
Okay, I thought you were strategic in doing that, going down to the youngest, but that's okay. Okay, I bow. Thank you, Suleiman. Um, I would say it's an easy question for me. I was about 6 years old or something like that, and my father had a gathering at our house, and our traditional dancers came, and oh, the way they play the drum, the way they move, for, I mean, a little girl, that experience was my first. I felt like I went into a trance. And from then, at that moment, I always knew, there was a passion that was, I would say, was evoked in me. And that passion really has stayed today. And that sound from the drum, from the dancer, and it was a war dance, you know, has left me. And that's when I first fell in love with the dance and the music, because I never separate the two. And that's it for me.
Thank you. And Mama Naomi, who would you like to pass it to?
Let me go to Asetua. Yes. Unmute Asetua.
Should have unmuted me. Okay. For me, being from New Orleans, living in America, there was not an African dance company in my environment. So for me, it was the beat of the drum that manifested in New Orleans culture. For some reason, I was always drawn to the drum. Um, as many of you may or may not know, New Orleans drummers, they actually separated the drumming system just like African drums. So there's the bass drummer, there's the snare drummer, then the tenor, the bell. It's all playing separately. And so in New Orleans second line music and Mardi Gras Indian music, it was always that percussive thing. And I was making up stuff, in my mind was, I didn't know what it was, but it was just that beat was driving me. And then when I got to college, um, I attended a dance class. Well, it was an exercise class. It was an exercise class to drums. And from that, we still was making up steps. We didn't really have traditional steps. But in 1984, when the World's Fair happened in New Orleans, and Marty Bass and Olukache came down, and we Kumbuka had already organized, but they came through. And when Marty Bass was so humble and she was so sweet, and when she shared with us Lanban, the different types of Lanban and Manjani, the spark came on. You know, we were doing it and the love was there, but when they shared that with us, I knew then that was where I belonged, even though I was going to college and going to school, saying I want to be all these different things. It was something about the drumming. And like you said, Mama, it just put you in a trance. And I knew that was something speaking to my soul. So yeah, I would say that's when I really, really fell in love, because I knew you can't be falling in love with somebody who you don't know. You know, you're supposed to know who you're falling in love with, right? So yeah, I would say that. I would say that, but then
Nice, nice. Baba Michael, how about you?
Well, I am from Trinidad and Tobago, and I was about 8 years old, and I was a singer. And suddenly in the schoolyard, there was this sound, and we all ran to the window to see what was going on. And it turns out that there was a dance class going on right outside in the schoolyard, and we all wanted to run down and be part of it. But again, it's that call of the drum, and they were actually learning a funerary dance, bongo. And it was just so fascinating, because bongo oftentimes is a very fast, very upbeat, and oftentimes it's left to the young ones, the younger people, to really kick off and do all the kind of gymnastic kind of things in bongo, because there are jumps there, and I think the curiosity was sparked because the drum called. And once that happened, and then I started seeing dance on stage, it was like, wait a minute, okay. And my parents went to the Guinea Ballet that came to Trinidad. And my father was excited because the women were topless, and that's why he wanted to go. And so I was like, really? Can we go? I was like, no, you're too young. You're not sophisticated enough. But there were pictures in the papers. And so that was just really exciting to see and feel that energy live. It was visceral. It really hit you right deep in the belly. And so I was a goner at that point. Forget it. That was it.
Nice, nice. Mama Omelaika, am I pronouncing it correctly?
Mama Omelika.
Omelika, thank you.
Thank
How about
you.
you? When and where did you first fall in love?
Oh boy. I fell in love with the rhythm when I was in the 5th grade. Not necessarily knowingly African rhythm, but rhythm and music. When my teacher used to leave the room, a couple of the boys used to play beats on the desk. And I would never play a beat myself because I was a girl and girls weren't supposed to play beats. But I'm telling you, like the sister said, I would make up some stuff in my head, and I was jamming with those brothers. I was jamming. And so that's when I knew I had a really strong affinity toward music and percussion. I started learning African dance when I was I think it was the 3rd grade. My mom sent me to an organization, well, a school called Black School. And it was a Saturday school where we learned about African American history and culture. And the first dance that I was exposed to was fanga. So when I did the fanga dancing and just saw the joy that the elders had in teaching us, that was when I just, it took hold.
and I've been loving it ever since. I had that experience, and then fast forward to when I was 27 years old. I had a friend who had just had a baby, and you may know her. Her name is Safia Harrison. Yes. So she had just had her youngest daughter, and she got up on the stage and she was flying all over the place, just looking like this beautiful gazelle. And at that point, I had become intimidated by African dance. But when I saw her, I said, you know, if she can do that after having had a baby, I can at least try. So I started taking classes, and when I turned 28 years old, I've been addicted ever since.
Nice, nice. Mama Sewa, what about you?
Well, for me, it kind of goes back to some family history. And my great aunts and uncles, they arrived in Harlem from Montreal and St. Kitts, West Indies in about the 1920s during the early part of the first migration coming into New York. And my parents followed them arriving in Harlem around 1934. But eventually they relocated from Harlem to Bed-Stuy in 1947. Eventually my brother was born, and then several years later I was born. My father, who worked in a factory during the day, in the evening, he was a musician, a guitarist for Sid Joe and the Calypso All-Stars. And me as a little girl, I sometimes was allowed to go with my father to rehearsals and to some of those like really crazy, exciting West Indian boat rides. You have no idea what goes on there. And and the music, it would just pulse through my body. And it was from that time that I began to like hear rhythms in my head as I walked, as I daydreamed, as I brushed my teeth, as I slept. You know, I hear rhythms. And one year, there was like a huge celebration at my house with lots of food, drinks, live music, and everybody was like really excited. But I didn't understand what was going on. I was a little kid, but it wasn't anybody's birthday or anything like that. So afterwards, I asked my parents, why was everybody so excited? And they said, that the Republic of Guinea had gained independence and everybody was hyped. And that was the first time that I realized that there was a connection between my community and Africa. And I was a little girl, but I never forget how excited the Caribbean community was here in America. And I always loved to dance, and I attended a number of dance schools and programs, but culturally, they just didn't fit my spirit. Then I went to Herbert Lehman College in the Bronx. Chuck Davis was teaching an African dance class there, and I thrived in that class. But it was only one semester, it was an elective. So next, in the early 70s, I began taking African dance classes at Olatunji Center of African Culture in Harlem. It was then that I fully understood that those rhythms that constantly danced through my head were actually related to traditional rhythms of Africa. And I finally found my niche, but I wasn't complete because I had not found my village. But in 1975, I started to attend a set of classes that were actually a microcosm of the community called the East. Now I was home. I had found the village. And when we speak about where we enter, this is where I fully entered.
Y'all got me all excited. This is beautiful. So, you know, Solo, we're gonna save you to last because it sounds like you wanted to be last. Aya, what about you? You know?
Hi, everyone. Respect to all my elders and seniors in the building that paved the way for me and us. So, my first love, I saw seventh grade. I was at an assembly, and some eighth graders in Brooklyn, New York. I did my little Caribbean dance, and they said we have a special presentation. And it was Baba Lucas Shea Wiles, Ibaye, and a crew of drummers, muscular dudes, no shirts on. The girls in the auditorium were going crazy. And then the dancers came out, and it was just like, oh my God, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Meanwhile, my mom was in the hospital dealing with breast cancer, and it was just me and my dad. So he's taking me to school, and I'm like, I want to be in this dance program. I want to be in this dance program. So the dance program didn't actually find me, came to me when I was in the 10th grade. My mother made her transition, and I got into a lot of trouble in school. And my salvation came when they offered this after school program. And Carter G. Woodson Cultural Literacy Project and Boys and Girls High School in Brooklyn, New York, under Stanley Kennard Ibaye to him as well. And they had African dance on there. And I said, sign me up for that right there. I want to do that right there. And the moment I got into class, I was there with Baba Lucas Shea Wiles and Amma Watt. And when I tell you the drumming, the music, the salvation of African culture, it got me through high school. Graduated on an honor roll on time, because the kind of rebellion that I kind of went through after my mother passed away, I should have been held back. People spoke a lot of other things upon me. I was the problem kid, I was the trouble kid, I was the rebellious kid. But African dance got me through high school. And not only that, it just gave me the eye for the ministry of what I was supposed to do for young people my age, and thinking about what I was missing and what I didn't have, and what would have been so much more helpful to me through the transition of my mother, and what community meant at that time, that I didn't have, and finding it in African music and African culture, and bringing the people together and people from different places. So as I stepped into that foot of this saved my life, being able to utilize this form to help other young people and other people, my ministry and my love came in that moment.
That's beautiful. And it took me back some years ago. I was at a conference in Chicago. It was called Policy Link. Had nothing to do with arts or dance. But there were some young people who were walking down the lobby with a shirt that said, "Dance saved my life." And it was really beautiful to see it at this policy convention. These young dancers, Black dancers, who had a shirt that said "Dance Saved My Life." And what you're talking about also makes me think of all of you are educators in dealing with arts and education. And African dance, unlike ballet and modern and several other forms, not to knock those forms, but something about the wraparound and the holistic nature of African dance, a lot of students of color relate to, and it takes them to a whole nother place. And it does save their lives in many ways and keeps them out of trouble in many ways. And I'm sure all of you can speak to that at one point within this conversation as well. So Solo, my dear, it's back to you. We come full circle.
All right. Oh, sounds good. So I has been born and raised in very deep conservative Muslim family. You cannot watch TV, no radio, not even talking about going out in the nighttime. No way. The only thing I first did is to go to the Quranic school, read the Quran, you at the school. If it's 12, you go home, you eat, you pray, and you wait until 2:30, you go back to school. You study, 5 o'clock, you're at the house, you have to be there before 6, sorry. 5:30, you have to be there to put the things in the mosque and like put the water in the bucket to put it down. People will come and like wash themselves to start praying. And then I start like fall in love with African dance and drumming, going out to watch the celebration, watch people dancing. I know if I touch my feet in that circle and dance, huh? It's gonna be Pepe at the house in the night. So I start following the youngest girl in the community. Sometimes they put money together. It can be like 50 cents, 25 cents. They put it together. Sometimes they invite the drummers. Before the celebration day, they put some money together to like buy a fabric. Everybody wear the same uniform. They buy fabric, and I cannot afford it. I was like younger, you know. They just make like a shirt for me. I only can wear that shirt to dance in the circle. After the celebration, I have to take off and give it to them because no way to walk with that shirt on me inside the house. And then since my family, they hear people like screaming like, hey, everywhere clapping, whatever stuff, they will say, my mom will say, he's there. He will send my brother to come and see what's going on. If they grab me, they beat me like crazy. I can really say it. In the African life society, I'm the only one who get beat up like crazy. If you ask me a question, yeah. And then I keep like pushing myself and doing it. You know, keep following the drum and dance, keep following the youngest women in the community. They would dance in the nighttime. Soon as the full moon come out, they will organize some kind of like celebration in nighttime. People clap their hands, they sing, they dance. I'm the only man in the circle dancing with them. If my brother see me, I will be in trouble. If my sister know I'm there, I will be in trouble. If my dad know I'm there, all the family, I will be in big trouble. What the youngest girl do, they will send the youngest to the corners. They will go stay in the street, like size to size, and watch. If they see a woman walking with the black faux boo coming in the dark, they will know that's my mother. Or somebody who walking with the white boo outfit, they will know if it's not my dad, it's my brother. They will run and come like say, hey, his family is coming. They will grab me and hire me in the house. My mom would come and my brother would come. They would like say bad thing to them, talk blah blah blah. They're not happy. They keep saying, "Oh yeah, you're gonna like messed up my son. I don't want my son to be a dancer. Men don't dance. Men not allowed to dance. Blah blah blah. The Quran didn't tell anybody to dance. The dance is haram. Is blah blah blah. A lot of different things like that. But you know, they send me at the school after the Quranic school. I keep going to the school and everything, but dancing at the same time. They keep beating me like crazy. And I get 18 years old, then I decide to go out and like rent a little room. I was paying that house $4 a month. $4. I rented a place. I was working with one of the military guy phone, like they have a phone service place. I was working there and trying to like make $10 per month and be able to pay my rent, blah, 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 whatever other stuff. Then I would be able to survive after. So I keep doing that, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing that. And then what my dad is going to do, he say, no, it's not gonna work. Let's grab this crazy boy and send him in the village. I went to the village. I work in the farm, like to grow maize, tomatoes, a lot of different stuff. Make shea butter, go to the forest and cut the trees, go to the wells and get the water and walk to miles and miles in the head. I did all of that.
So Solo, that
Yes.
that what you just talked about makes me think about the next question that we have, and this idea of the village, because the title of this panel is called "It Takes a Village," right? So it sounds like in your situation, it took a village, right? Even though there was some ups and downs in that village, and your and how they saw you as a dancer. But I want to kind of circle back to what you're talking about and go to Mama Setua and start off with you talking about this idea of a village, because what Solo's talking about is as a young person in a village, and we all were together earlier talking about the travesty that just happened with Mama Jamila's son being murdered, and the village in New Orleans now trying to come together and heal in this moment. So as we're here in this panel, we're talking about it takes a village. What does that mean? What does that really mean when we say it takes a village? You are on mute.
Before I answer that, something that Solo shared um, brought something up for me, growing up in New Orleans, because we have this fantasy about Africa, you know, African Americans. It's this big fantasy. And so you assume that if someone grows up in Africa, that they're all gonna dance because they're in Africa. So for me to hear him say that his family did not want him to do that, it reminds me of what happens in New Orleans when you decide to be a black Baskin Indian or second liner, because it's taboo. They don't want your children to be involved with that, which is the indigenous culture of New Orleans. So I found that really interesting. I appreciated him sharing that because I learned something. Um, to answer your question specifically about the village, this one just really, um, many times it takes an event that either mobilizes the village or breaks the village apart. So the community of New Orleans, and just like any place else, there's pockets of communities. There's a community that comes up around the dance and the drum. That's one community. Then there's the community of the people who are committed to the liberation of the African people. That's another community inside that community. And then it's just a community of Black people just in general, right? And we kind of felt the conscious woke people, we kind of felt that we were kind of outside of those things that was happening to the other part of our community. uh the Our young people being in another alternative lifestyle where their lives were being taken away violently, you know, through gun violence. So when this happened, it just wrenched everybody. And so we all, because of COVID, we could not come together like we normally would to give each other the support. COVID really was a big challenge for us, because immediately we wanted to come together. You know, Normally we drum every night until the services happen. They weren't able to do that. We go by the family's house. We couldn't do that because Mama Jamila was really adamant about not having a bunch of people. You know, she was one of the vulnerable community members. So I think that it's very interesting how this particular pandemic is causing communities to reshape and rethink, how do we move as a community when we restricted the very things that allow us to manifest and show up as community when we can't do that. Um, so this one was really hard because she even admitted she just wanted to come by us and just sit at the table, you know, and just eat some food and just laugh, cry, dance, and she couldn't do any of that. And that for me made me realize just how important the village was. The village was extremely important. And you don't really realize it until you can't really have it, how significant it is. Um, his death is causing everybody to really, really analyze how are we dealing with our young people, because we living in this false thing that our children are somehow protected because we got a goon and the kids get initiated and they got their elecades and all of this, but they still vulnerable to some of the same he has out there. But I can honestly say if we didn't have the village, we would have really just, it would have been another tragedy. So I'm really learning right now. We just rethinking the whole thing. How do we support one another? How do we come together? How do we reach out to the young people when the village is not allowed to be a village? You know?
Mm-hmm. I want to ask all of you at this moment to kind of unmic, and if there's anyone else who wants to add, Mama Malika, Mama Sewa, Baba Michael, Mama Naomi, because I think the village question is very important in the midst of this digital divide and technology and sheltering in place. How do you maintain community? And all of you have been trying to I guess, do this. So if anything comes to mind or anyone wants to respond to that.
If I'm at, is that, I mean, one thing to really think about, I mean, as we talk about the village, it doesn't matter with this divide right now that's happening. We are still all responsible for each other, and what is happening now is that we have to change how how we connect the village with each other. Now it might be that it's a smaller gathering, but it's still we understand it extends beyond that smaller gathering because of where we are today, that we have to expand it by utilizing technology. So I mean, I would just say that because we still have to understand today that we all thrive together. That means I become successful within my own right. So we still have to maintain that sense, the concept of the village. It takes a village. And as far as the children, again, it takes smaller group of village members, to always be concerned about what's happening with our young people.
Thank you. And what resonated with me was this idea of we are all still responsible for each other. Was someone else? I'm sorry, it seemed like someone else was going to say something.
I'd like to say something.
Yeah.
I think that, one of the big problems that was here before COVID is the fact that some of us still don't identify with the concept of being a part of a village. You have that Western mentality of every man and woman for themselves. And I think that one of the important things that has to happen for many people first is to actually recognize that we are a communal people. It's traditional for us, it runs in our blood. In general, our social structure and our heritage, is communal. And when you have a village, that in terms of African ethnicity, it includes the embodiment of our values, our institutions, and our patterns of behavior. And I think it's really important for us now and in the future, um, to embrace the concept of village, because it helps us to actually experience and benefit a lot of the nation building ideologies, such as the seven principles: unity, self determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, creativity, purpose, faith, but also the village, which is the community, it's the keeper of our culture. And that's extremely important because culture expresses our collective voice, it embraces our collective history. It's our political voting bloc. It governs our behavior, and it brings support. The village brings support. It has a lot to do with keeping our integrity as a people. It makes us unique, and very importantly, it safeguards the wisdom of the elders, which we need that leadership and that guidance. And so I think it's really important for us to remember who we are and embrace the concept of it takes a village.
Thank you. Baba Michael, would you like to share?
Certainly. Just to bounce off of my own experience, I feel that this village, this metaphoric village that's there and takes us teachers, because of my own experience, to just open your arms and accept. Open your arms and soothe. Open your arms and calm. Open your arms and advise. Don't just like Mama Sewa said, be that hedonistic, I'm about me, I'm doing me, and you do you. It was that concern that brought me from being a child inside of a classroom to being a storyteller. This teacher said, oh, you, Manswell, you're gonna do storytelling. I was like, well, okay. And she just sat there and groomed me. I didn't pay any money. She didn't do it for money. My singing teacher was like, come, do this. My dance teacher, oh, you make a good dancer. Come on. I paid once for a class, once. But because those people cared, and because those people respected, and because those people offered a safe space where you could express self, where they could teach you, and you could open up to them, that's the village. The village oftentimes doesn't come all at once, but it's in these installments. And as you move along, you get all this encouragement, you get the respect of elders, because the elders first respect you as a talent or a budding talent, and they say, I can put a hand here and put a little mold. I could put a little something, I could put a little something, and next thing you know, you have this full-fledged individual that is taking on the weight or the yoke of the next generation. And that's how it keeps rolling. Because my teacher said to me, oh, you make a great teacher. And I was like, what? I don't want to be no teacher. And what do I do now? This is how I live. This is why I live. And I feel I feel like a proud father all the time, every semester. Like, Professor, how do you feel about this? I was like, well, y'all are great. Y'all are wonderful. But it is that concern because my students look like me. And even if they don't look like me, they still are me in some way, shape, or form. And once you take on that responsibility, you're that one person that's holding their hand, that's leading, that's somehow cajoling, coercing gently this thing to flower. And so I feel that if we start doing that, then the ones that we mentor or we help form also have an appreciation, and they go, because you've shown them love, they can show love otherwise.
Thank you. There's a couple of things that have come up in the last few comments that I want to reiterate because I think it's really important. And it's this first of all, is love. Is love. A village means love. And this idea that the village is not just one thing, it's many things. Because I think some people there's a whole history of Africa being African culture. Some people say, oh, how do you speak African? So the idea that the village is made up of so many different people with so many different perspectives and so many different experiences. And the most important thing, because we all are each other's caretakers, to create a safe space within the village. And then the last thing that also came up for me in the conversation and listening to everyone is that the village is forever evolving. And what village means to us is forever evolving. And this moment that we're in right now has created a new way of understanding and recreating and shaping and reforming what village truly means to us. So I know that Io, you were texting me on the side. So what I want you to talk, say what you had put into the chat and expound on that a little bit more.
Yeah. So I just was mentioning that our pandemic isn't like we're going through this now and we're experiencing this now, but our ancestors, our Egun, they experienced some form of this in some way during their time as well. Whether it was being tossed from boats, whatever it might have been for them, they got through it. They figured out a way to find secret societies and secret ways to do whatever it is they needed to do safely. Of course, with herbs and medicines, we were able to heal ourselves and take care of ourselves in these pandemics and in these moments, which we are living examples that village remain pandemic, no pandemic, or whatever's going on. And I was explaining that Djoli, Kelen, Sulé, Esailama, what you all are doing with trying to archive, bring us together with these panels, using technology and these underground ways for us to be able to come together to drum, having virtual classes. We're figuring it out, even the way the times are changing. So while the times are changing, you know, it takes everything and everybody, meaning it takes the engineers, it takes the nurses, it takes the artists. It's not, the village is everybody from the youngest to the oldest. You know, everybody has to find their strength and be accountable for their own individual growth and development and in their strengths, because as we are evolving and as times are changing, we're only accountable for ourselves and how we choose to embrace continuing on with our culture and with community, and being able to not only value what we offer, but our people being able to value other people and the strengths that other people have. You know, sometimes there's so much discord within our own community, we can't see that, you know, we're keeping ourselves from having our communities strong and maintained respectfully, because everyone's trying to do this, compete here, compete there, and everyone is strong in their own special gift and their own thing that they have to contribute to a community. And a lot of times people don't feel valued. People feel like their voice isn't heard in a community. So being able to, as elders, as leaders, as teachers, be accountable for who we are and how we facilitate these moments where everyone in the community can feel valued, I feel like it takes that much more of personal work to make a community work. A lot of people don't do the individual stuff, you know?
Thank you. Mama Omelika?
Yeah, I was thinking, I'll shade to what everybody has shared. Sometimes we don't know what, because there's so many different levels of village, there's so many different ways that community manifests itself. Sometimes we don't even know what our village is or where our village is until we're confronted with its love. And we get to experience that love by walking in our purpose, walking in our light, walking in our truth. When I got hit by a car a few years ago, I was overwhelmed with the love and support of our village. I had no idea that that much was coming my way, and it still comes my way. My dad died a couple of months ago, and the love that came to me from the village, just because of just because of my learning the lessons that I needed to learn, and being me, being the person that I am, being the person that the community has groomed me to be, and living in that way, the love came, the village manifested itself for me. And I think as we continue to be the teachers that we are, to touch and touching the lives of the people who we continue to touch, as we walk our walk and the people learn from us, then they can get a chance to experience what the village is, what it really looks like, because it manifests in different ways at different times. We have an overall arcing village, and then every now and then we'll get a chance to see this highlighted part of us, depending on where we are in our journey, and other aspects of the village that come through. So I think that everything that everybody said is absolutely true. And just from my personal experience, I know that the village, you know, has manifested itself for me in such a fulfilling way, such an affirming way. And, you know, I'm getting all choked up now because the pain is still on me, but just to feel that love. And I think as we exemplify our truth, we exemplify our beauty as we walk our walk, showing our students how much we love them, showing our children how much we love them. And they in turn learn how to be those people, be those spirit beings who will then draw that same kind of love and that same kind of support from the village. So somebody mentioned, I think Io said something about we have that accountability of how to be. And when we step into that accountability, then things, you know, help to manifest, and the village is there to support us. And then it continues to ripple, to create a rippling effect.
So one of the things that I want to stay with you on this, because you brought up a few things that lead us to another one of our questions. In the book, we talk about spirit talk, right? And music and dance, particularly African music and dance, being a form of spirit talk and spirit works, not ROKS, but RUW, not WORKS, but WURX, right? So working the spirit in a way. And you also mentioned this idea of being teachers, but also touching lives, which leads us to one of the other questions that talks about your teaching, all of your teachings. What is it that is most important for you all to pass down as teachers? Because as you have, as Ayo has said, dance saved her life. As you talk about love and manifesting love, as Mama Naomi has talked about all of us being responsible for each other, and Setwa talking about the village, and Baba Michael's words. So what is it that's most important for you as you pass down what you have embodied and what you have learned as now a teacher? Mom, that's you. It's still you. Yes, still you. It's all you still. And we can pass. You can pass it on to someone else.
Okay. Well, for me, I want my students to come out of the experience with me knowing that they are loved. I want them to be able to use African music and African dance as a springboard for self-reflection, self-understanding, and motivation to explore life. So when I talk about body language, I talk about communicating, and how sometimes you can say something without ever opening your mouth, just by the way you present yourself in a physical way. And of course, we know that dance and music goes beyond the physical. It's a spiritual and it's an emotional expression. And so I like for my students to leave knowing that they are loved, and that we use the dance and the music as a vehicle of sharing that love and also sharing that empowerment. Because a lot of times, some of the students that I have worked with, whom I've worked, have never danced, or if they dance, they weren't able to use their bodies in certain kinds of ways, because just like Brother Solo talked about, the ways that dance was looked upon. I've had students to tell me, "Oh my gosh, I can move my hips now. I wasn't allowed to do that, because it was looked on as being dark and dirty and sexual and just not wholesome." And so for me for them to feel loved, to carry that through every aspect of their lives, and then to celebrate the fact that it came from Africa, that love, the foundation of it is African music and African dance.
And Baba Michael, what about you?
Okay, so when I came to New York, I met Cheryl Byron Ibaye. And I went to her class, I went to her rehearsal, and something struck me. I walked in and I'm looking at her and I said, this woman reminds me of Oya. And I was like, oh, she really does remind me of this Oya energy. And we got to talking after a few weeks, and I said, how do you do this? How do you do all of this? How do you do, like, teach class, go teach, go to NYU, teach rehearsal, do all of this, and still have your feet in all these worlds and still hold on to who you are. And she says, Michael, when I wake up in the morning and I look in the mirror, I see Africa. I don't see China. And that says to me, it's a watchword for me. It's what I want my students to be able to look in that mirror. And when I teach, especially when I teach the Afro-Caribbean Dunham-based movement, I look at yourself, this denuded self. You can't hide at that point. You are looking at self, and I really want them to take a good, long, hard look at who they are and walk and strut and stride in that light and that power and that beauty that is self, that has been uncovered by the work we're doing in the body. And so that when they denude all that and all of that and all of that and all of that, then they get to the real that, that Africa affords them. Africa affords them to walk in that light, walk in that beauty, walk in that power, and not with arrogance or hubris, but walk with that confidence fearlessly into the room. And I tell them, walk into that room and everybody must be saying, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Can I get your number? Like, who's that? Yeah. They ask me and I'm old. And so they go like, oh, Professor's like, When I walk into a room, I own it. So you gotta look at yourself in that mirror every morning or every day that we're in class. Look at the self and appreciate that which you are. And Africa affords us that. Africa is wealthy. She's a wealthy woman, a cash madam. So we can do that. And I really want them to do that because I feel that that's so empowering, because they always tell me when I urge them to speak in class, you don't want to hear it. I was like, yes, I do. What you say in this room has value for me, has worth for me. But they've been told, for so many of them have been told for so long, to shut up. And what they have to say is not important, that they've got to just look at themselves and walk in that power.
That's powerful what you just shared. And it also makes, the last piece you just shared in terms of young people who for so long have been told they have what is it called, ADHD or some kind of attention deficit disorder, and so they medicate them. But in turn, many of you are working with young people and offering them a different channel, different way to channel that energy and to say, yes, I hear you, I honor you, I respect you. In New Orleans, as Oseto would say, I respect your mind. Right. And a lot of people don't feel like their minds are being respected. So Solo, I haven't forgotten about you. What about you? Where what would you like for your students? What do you want your students to, what do you want to pass down? What's most important for you, Solo, in your work to pass down to your students?
The thing to pass down for my students, the first thing is to my students to know it's time and we need to come together first. Come together and do what? Help each other and support each other to be able to preserve the culture. It can be dancing, it can be drumming, it can be singing. Every single time if I'm traveling, I'll be like, want to show to my students, I can't only be the person who can like bring the information to you, and I would like to give you a more courage for you to be able to come with me, to get up with me and go to do some kind of research to be able to make the culture survive a lot. That's the thing when I'm like dancing with a student and everyone, I would like people to feel that and know that. That's the thing I would like to pass down for my student. To know, born and raised in Africa doesn't mean you know everything.
Okay.
It's time for all of us. Yes, it's time for all of us to please get up to be able to preserve this amazing culture together. Don't wait and say, oh, my brother is on the other side. Oh yeah, he's gonna be back. I'm going to take a class. No. You can do like me too. I always like give a courage to my students and let them know you will read my body, but it's good for you to like also go under the search to be able to read more body, to understanding more.
Solo, that's really what you said is important, because there have been many instances in the few years that I have been dancing, and I say few compared to Mama Setwa and Mama Omalika and several other of the Baba David. There's something about what a dancer comes with naturally, right? I've seen some beautiful young girls from Berkeley, California, and they do linging. Like, I've been to Casamas, and they do linging better than the women I've seen in Casamas do it, right? So there's something about, there's different dances that sit on a person's body in such a way that is just so natural to that person and that person's body. And they may not be from that place where the dance comes from, but it sits on their body and they take it in so well that you just feel like, oh, this must be, it's almost like that dance is a kindred spirit to that person's body. So I think what you're saying is important, and that's what it makes me think about, of how some dances, we may not be from the place that dance, quote unquote, originates from, but we come to connect with it so much and love it so much and embody it in a way, we do it even better than the people who come from that place. So to a certain extent, your permission that you're giving is important to hear as well, as someone from the continent. Asetwa or Ayo, is there something you want to add, or Mama Naomi?
Yeah, first of all, what everybody else has said is exactly, what I want. But in addition to that, I want my students to acknowledge the divinity in the movement. It is very important that they acknowledge that when they allow their bodies to move in the way African movement shapes, that they need to understand that it is through the Creator. It's, African dance, the way we move is sacred. It's not so much that you learn the specific step of the technique of how it goes, but you need to allow your body to have that experience with you and your Egun and the Creator. That's my main thing. I want them to feel comfortable in their bodies to do a movement that feels weird. Because most of the time they be like, this feels weird. Allow yourself to experience that. Because African dance, unlike other dance forms, is that vehicle that allows that transformation to take place. And I see it with my young students, but it wasn't until I brought it into the prisons where I got a chance to work with women who had never been exposed to African culture before, who were so open to wanting to dance. And when they learned the dance and the songs, because they can sing all the songs, the light that happened on their spirit was just so amazing. And for many of them, they didn't totally manifest a step properly, but it was what they bought. They opened up themselves and they allowed the divine energy to come into their bodies and manifest and move like that. And I think it's so important, because I think right now African dance it's evolving like anything else is evolving, and there's this component that really is about the showcase. It's about, the stage, is about how it looks. And I'm struggling to hold on to the essence of what African dance is really. It's what kept that village together. It wasn't the fact that the village was going to perform on a stage. It was what that movement meant to the people when they would be amongst their people, dancing for crops to grow, dancing for the initiation for a child. It's that kind of stuff I want to hold on to. And I just think that African dance has a way of doing it where other dance forms just don't do it. They don't do it for our children. They don't even do it for white people. White people get into euphoric stages. They can't handle it. But that African spirit come down and it just has a way of filling up the room. And so I just want my students to acknowledge it and then walk in that journey with it. Take that feeling, walk with it, and let it just permeate your spirit, and be okay with that, and recognize that divinity in others, because that's part of our issue. why our village is so dysfunctional. We don't recognize the divinity in each other. We just think, oh, we got it. No, everybody has some of that. So that's the main thing I want them to recognize.
So Mama Sewa, Ayo, and Mama Naomi, can you quickly also share your response in terms, what would you like for your students to carry on?
Okay. I would say, when I taught so many students, but one of the first things when I teach them, I come from the place that I am, and I tell them I bring my passion and my love for the dance. And that's what I want to pass on to them. Because I feel if, when they capture the passion. So before the passion, I teach them to understand the rhythm because again, for me, it's all about the music. So I teach them to understand the components of the rhythm because that in a particular rhythm, there are so many parts that cater to the spirit because the dance is about the spirit. And I want them to understand every part in the rhythm to be able to find that pleases the spirit and take them to that level, because we say in African dance, you have different meters in the dance. And it's the best dancers that really go beyond the third into the fourth level. And that's that level that sometimes they say, oh, you are possessed. And so that's what I want them to find out because I always say, anybody pretty much can learn technique, but everybody cannot have that passion for the dance. You can go anywhere. I mean, we see it, you go on YouTube and you can go continental, and there are some people, so many people dancing with technique. You say, oh, wow. But when you look, you say, oh, but you don't have the spirit. So it's that I want to pass on to students because I know if they have the passion for the dance, then we go deeper into learning the technique. Then they go deeper into learning the culture because we talking about the dance and music is only part of the culture. We want students to be able to learn the totality of the culture. And if they can come away with learning, having that passion to learn the totality, we have accomplished something in our teaching.
I love this idea of the totality of the culture.
Yes.
I love that. We gotta coin that somewhere. I was talking to Brother Weedy Brima, who's a beautiful drummer. As you speak about music, I was thinking about Weedy and Madi and all the young drummers who are out there, and we've all had a conversation at one point about decolonizing sound. And I thought that was so deep. I was like, wow, decolonizing sound, using African music to decolonize sound, or as we learn about African music, how we decolonize sound. And Ngungi wa Thiong'o has a book called Decolonizing the Mind. So it's this idea is I wish we can go on and on about it. But Ayo, where are you? Where are you?
Right there.
Everything was so good. What everybody said was so good. It was just so, it's like you want your students to get everything. You want them to have everything to contribute to and to keep it moving and make it quick. I would say respect for the culture, respect for our own privilege. Because I feel like in the States, we don't even realize how privileged we are. We take privilege into the whole white context, but the privilege of just being in America and some of the things that we have and that we do, and really being in the reality of what's really happening in Africa, or what things are really like during the days in Africa. I like for my students to understand that real. So I am the teacher that is resilience. I teach resilience, challenging the gender norms, challenging a lot of those things that are put upon us by westernized society. Questioning. I want them to question, ask questions. Don't be afraid to question your teachers. Don't be afraid to question, so that what we know, we can share, and what we don't know, we can say we don't know and continue to do the research and archive. And loving who they are. That was like a big thing, like finding their place. Like I speak for big time for the LGBT community, finding our place where we are outcasted, where everybody in the village. And then I come to Africa and the things that I see where my students that have been kicked out of homes and things like that and rejected for who they are, being able to come to Africa and find those same things here where people would assume that they're not here, and being able to allow these students to still find their own connection where they've been told they're not here. So I think that individuality and being able to be resilient against the westernized norms and allowing that respect of the culture itself to kind of permeate and resonate with them. I'll add that to the collective of juicy stuff that everybody
It's
said.
all good and juicy and meaty and good. I have a few more questions, and the way we're gonna work this is I'm gonna divide the questions out a little bit. So certain people will answer certain questions just for the sake of time. So for Ayo, we're gonna stay on you, and also Mama Sewa, the two of you, speaking about women and women in this movement, right? What is it, and Ayo, you speaking from as a woman, LGBTQ, but also having all women's company, right? And Mama Sewa as well, being a woman in the movement, in this movement. And when I say the movement, I really feel like African music and dance is a movement, particularly with all of what you all have said, Baba Michael, Mama Setua, Mama Naomi, all of you. So what is it being a woman in this movement for you, Ayo? What is it being a woman in this movement for you, Mama Sewa?
You want me to speak, or you still with Ayo?
Either one of you can go for it.
Okay, so I'll go for it. As a woman in the movement, you know, the role of women often is to rear the children and to teach them, you know, the way of life. And I feel that it's very important as a woman to be able to give them what I've gotten out of the dance. You know, I have an increasing, you know, an increased and overwhelming love and pride in my heritage as an African person. And to pass that on, and this goes back to also what, you know, the question about being a teacher is very important, because we have so, you know, people say we have a lot here in America, but yet we have so little because so much has been taken away from us mentally and spiritually and emotionally, you know. And the dance and the history and the dance and the tradition, it has so much to do, so much impact on the knowledge of a person and on an individual's self-esteem. And I feel that it's very important to be able to open those doors so that I'm definitely, you know, a Garveyite in the sense of people without a, you know, knowledge of their history and culture is like a tree without roots. And being around the children, being around adults, this is a way of opening those doors, reopening those doors, giving back what has been taken away from us, because that's what makes us strong as a people. Understanding our relationship, our heritage, our traditions, and being able to pass that down. And that's what I like to do as a woman in the culture, to be able to pass down our traditions, to be able to raise us up with knowledge and high self-esteem. I think that is what my role is.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Ayo, where you at?
I'm here.
Stop hiding, girl. Stop hiding.
My heart is beating so fast right now over this question. Women are vital to the making of civilization. You know, without us feeding our children, nursing our babies, nurturing the families, being the pillars of the family, realizing that being in a family of 10 children, here's my mom, dad's a preacher, mom passed away when I was 15, and looking at how a family can fall apart when the mother or when the queen or the goddess of the household is not there. Even though people will stereotypically say, oh, the man is the breadwinner, he's the strong one, and he holds the family together. Oh, no, no, no. You know, the woman and what she offers. And a lot of our women have lost themselves and confidence in not only, and it's not anything new, but even when I go other cultures and I think about how women don't have a voice and they can't speak, how spiritually and religiously women are inferior. And thinking about what African dance did for me to make me feel this power and this strength and this confidence to just be myself and move forward. Community, my company, you know, we have many women, they're trying to work all kind of jobs, all hours. They want to get to dance class, they want to do certain things, they can't pick up their children from school. So we have this network, we build this community, Ayodele community, so that we can have this network of helping each other out, getting each other through the divorces. You know how many times we've had to hold on to our sister and because of broken hearts, thinking about why we fall ill with cancers and diseases and mental illnesses on our women because of how much we take on and how we have to hold up not only our men, our communities, and our children, and still try to find a way to be ourselves and honor ourselves in our own strength. So the more I kind of move into starting Ayodele, all women's company, was because of just kind of trying to find my way in communities that outcasted me for several reasons. You know, being outcasted, not having a good mentor. I had so many people that have encouraged me and taught me and pushed me along the way. But the queer thing, like I used to envy some of my dance buddies. Like I'm in my 40s and it's like, I can't really say I had a mentor, somebody that took me under their wing and nurtured me and nursed me. Everything that I had to get, I had to fight through, you know, not falling subject to being the inferior party in the room, or because I didn't marry an African man or I'm not dating somebody, a drummer, nobody wants to teach me. So I had to come dig and find for myself. Starting this community where women don't have to always feel subject to finding their power and their strength because they were thrown away, and being able to give people a space where no matter who they are, where they come from, if they grew up in the culture, if they didn't, whatever that experience might mean for them, having this network and building it for true, for the women, because that's pretty much where my ministry started to lie when I realized how isolated I found myself, not only being Black, being African American, not being from the continent, being ridiculed for being queer. So it's like all of those things on top just made me feel like I have to heal me. I have to get this healing, and this music, this drumming, it heals me. So how can I now share this with a group of women, the people that we are responsible for nurturing this world and keeping that strength and that power and everything moving forward. So what do? Set up this safe space so that women can come and have that camaraderie. Not that everything is always like, you know, strong, like we have our differences, but family is family, and we all are there for like a goal and a purpose to really allow the music, the dance to speak messages and ministry to everybody, and not just about women, but also to speak for our people, just how all of us have lived different lives and how all of our paths has brought us to this place differently, and what that meant for them.
And Aya, on that note, I want to segue what you just said. The last few sentences of what you just said made me think. The book sits on the premise of the International Decade for the People of African Descent, and I would like for Mama Omalika, Mama Naomi, and Baba David to speak on that question about the role that African music and dance should and can play right now as we're in the midst of the International Decade, the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent. And I think it's important for us to highlight it. I think it's important for us to remind people that we are in the decade right now. And me as coming from a funder perspective, working in philanthropy, can you speak on these two aspects of how can African music and dance continue to lift up and highlight the International Decade of People of African Descent? And why would that even be important to a funder like myself? Right. So I don't want to make it a loaded, long question. I'm sorry, but it's important because I think right now, as African music and dance companies are trying to get funding, funders are asking, what does African dance have to do with housing? What does African dance have to do with policy? What does African dance have to do with anything other than just African dance? Right. So I want this to be a moment where the three of you can really kind of touch on why is African dance important in this decade? And why is African dance? And because the decade speaks about racial equity, it speaks about injustice, it speaks about civil rights and human rights. And for me, there is a deep connect to why we dance, why we're in this in the first place, and those causes. So anyone can jump in. And thank you, Ayo. Thank you.
I mean, as you just said, I mean, when I think about this resolution, yes, the purpose what is around justice, recognition, equality for African people to participate in all aspects of society and not to be discriminated against or deny access to economic and social resources. Because I mean, and I think this is a great time for us to really ponder this resolution and really come together, really, and devise speaking points, as you said, for funders, for policy makers, and other people, to really understand how important, African art, African culture is, and especially as we, the current situation that is happening in the communities and it's around the world around Black people. You cannot, talk about Black people without talking about African art, African culture. Again, as we talk about the dance, is just a small part component. We have to speak in the larger term of the culture. And so, yeah, this is something, again, as I ponder this question, I said, wow, we need to continue this conversation amongst ourselves and really come up with some powerful talking points to be able to hit funders hard, to be able to hit policy makers, and even to be able to hit in our own Black community and go back, to, the times of the Black Power movement. The whole idea was to get connected to our heritage. And so we need to even go amongst in our communities and say, look, y'all have to tie this stuff to African culture because that's where we come from. That's our power. That's what unites us. That's what actually gives us a stronger world, because when you think about the population of Black people in the world, my goodness, if we could speak all together, think about the power we can command. So I will stop there.
I think someone earlier talked about cultural nationalism. When we had the question, I don't know if it was Mama Sewa or Mama Yu or Malika, when you talked about cultural nationalism. And Mama Naomi, when you're talking about Black arts and Black power movement. So Baba David, what happened? Like where are we when we're talking about African arts today? I'm not talking about 1950s, 60s, and 70s. I'm talking about today. How can we bring back this idea of housing and how housing connects to African artists who need housing and are people who many people are 1099 workers and they can't access unemployment benefits. So how can we start how can African music and dance be at the center of those conversations around housing, equity, social justice, and policy making?
Are you talking to me? Michael.
Yes, yes, Baba Michael, yes. And also you, Mama, yes.
You continuously call me David, and I don't mind.
Oh,
No. That's something spiritual. It's been happening ever since I've been 21. So it's
wow.
yeah. So it's normal. I'm cool with it.
That's deep.
Yeah, it is deep. It is deep.
Baba Michael. There's a David in your something.
In my lineage, somewhere. I feel that as we begin to talk about how the dance or how the dance inside of the culture shapes us personally. That's the one thing. I go back to this decade of that has been applied by the UN. I was at a talk that Mr. Glover gave at Columbia Fordham. And one of the things he said, it was 450 years of enslavement, 150 years of freedom does not cure. And so what we need to begin to do is to internationalize in a way, or that's not a good word. It is to make that connection, because I feel that what we practice is transcendent. And all these things that we are being faced with, the injustice, the inequity, the violence, and the inordinate violence, raw violence against our persons, our physical bodies, we must stress the transcendence of the art forms that we practice. The drumming, the singing, the music. How does it affect? Why is it affecting? Why is it changing the molecules in the room? Why is it changing the vibration? Can we not see it when we play for animals? When can we not see it when we play for our children as they study math or English or French or Wolof or whatever, that it has an effect. So what we have to do now is to find those controls and mine them so that we are the beneficiaries of this interest in Black people. What oftentimes, like I felt so good to receive this in the mail, because it said that, yeah, we're song and dance darkies and we do it damn well, but we could also write. We can also articulate our need, we can articulate our position, we can articulate our demands, and these are the things that we need to start looking at. Because when Pearl Primus did the wedding that my company performs right now, and she talked to us about the drum spirit being able to ward off the demon that had inhabited the company. And Mama Sewa's son, Naja, was our first drum spirit. And he came on stage and that djembe went, and that demon went on the ground, and he was able to drum that negative energy, drum, music, not let's kill the demon with daggers from the warriors that were on stage. The drumming killed the demon, moved it away, and also then caressed the rest of us that were on stage awake into this new thing. So it's that transcendence. Music transcends, movement transcends, the singing, the words, our poetry, it transcends. When I looked at that young woman at the inauguration and I thought, oh my God, yes, wonderful, it transcends. So we have to find a way to, I don't want to use this word, but I'll use it, to weaponize what we do and target all those things that we want and that we will get, because we will get it. We will get it.
Nice, nice. Mama Omalika and Solo.
This word has been used a lot, but I think it's a very valuable one, and that is, it's time for some reparations. Plain and simple. We paid our dues. We've been paying them with 400 times 400 times 400, And if this is our decade, then come on with it. You know, everybody has talked about the ways that dance and music heal us. We know that the music and the dance create endorphins, and those things help to bring down stress. And when we're stressed, when we have less stress, then we're able to be more productive. We can live more wholesome and healthier lives. So the writing that the brother mentioned, if we get our writers and our scholars together to put it down on paper, all of the ways that African music, African dance, African culture are empowering to us as a people, are healing to us as a people, and how it does go beyond just our culture, but to the other cultures at large, then I think that there's a way to like start chipping away at the minds and say, okay, this can be helpful. If the African people are not so angry and are not so ill, maybe we can do even more things that help the whole society be even more productive, because we're always working. But if we're working in a way that is healthier, if we're feeling healthier as we're doing this work, and if we're being creative as we're doing this work, and if we're healing as we do this work, then it can be beneficial to the whole. You said something else that I wanted to respond to, but everybody else has been saying such great things, I kind of forgot. But basically, they owe us. And so we just need to be able to put it in writing in a way. Oh, you talked about the artists being the 1099 people. So the 1099 people, we need some help now. We need some help. And we've been giving to the community. We've been building. We've been feeding the minds and the bodies and the spirits of everybody, the doctors, the lawyers, the Indian chiefs, everybody else. So, you know, help us out. Help us out. We are shown, we've already proven our worthiness, and we will continue to do so. So yes, let's just hand it over.
What you just mentioned, I know we have to close soon, but what you mentioned, all of you have companies and all of you have artists. Mama Sewa, you have a company, you have artists. And it's one of those things where we have to kind of talk. And as a side note, many funders are not artists, but they're funding arts. And so oftentimes, yes, you're right. The language on the paper has to connect the dots, almost like you're feeding them with a silver spoon in their mouth, because they're not going to make the connections if you don't make the connections for them. And it's really important. There's many dance companies that weren't able to access payroll protection programs because you don't have W-2 employees. And so there's a whole conversation that needs to happen around labor and unionization and African music and dance, and how does all that come together? Solo, I wanted to ask you this question because you have a nonprofit organization based in Mali, and you're doing work between Mali and the United States. And there is a funding question that you deal with as well. What is it to have a nonprofit organization and be an artist going between Mali and the United States and trying to find funding for the work that you're doing between these two continents?
I would love to speak for all of us. African culture is just something who's need to get funded. It's really important. And I'm gonna be 1000% open with you guys. I have so much respect in the contemporary dance. I have so much respect in the lot of other dance. I have so much respect for it. But today, in this time, if you don't do contemporary dance, it won't be easy for you to get the funding. It can be UNESCO, it can be UNESCO, it can be UNESCO. It can be different people who's funding. Why not African dance too? Why not the culture? I use the example with the United States. There is a lot of amazing teachers like you guys who have a dance company, who organize a conference. It's not easy to get like a funding from other places. But I ask a question to myself, why not? If you come here in Mali, the same thing. We has been reply to get a funding from the US Embassy. Yeah, we are live. At the US Embassy, we try to reply to get a funding there. And one of my people trying to get a meeting there to talk to them to find out, oh, where the cultural money will go. Oh, we have someone who's taking care of everything. Huh. There is a thousand of nonprofit here in Mali. There is a thousand of nonprofit in the United States. There is a thousand of nonprofit in France and the war. But they're taking that money and give it to one person here in Mali, and that person will manage everything. Even you reply, you write an email, you write blah, 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 and reply to get that grant, you're not gonna see that shit. I'm sorry. I am sorry. African culture is something you need to get funded. I want my people to hear that. It's really good because African dance and drumming is kind of like a medicine. If it get into your body, it will wake you up. You're gonna stand up. You don't have no choice. You're gonna stand up. We the one who will organize a festival. We the one who will organize a celebration. We the one who will organize a concert to make people awake, to make people forget the stress, to make people not lose their mind, to bring people together, to bring peace in the world. We don't have a gun to shot anybody, but we have our drum and dance and the song to bring people together, to bring peace in the world.
Solo, that makes me think when we talk about, we say this phrase cooperative economics all the time, but whether we within the African music and dance community actually utilize it and maximize it, I don't know if that really happens, because it feels like everyone's kind of off in their silos trying to find their own money, and it feels like a grasshopper mentality in the sense where people feel like there's not enough. But really what you just made me realize and remember that there's plenty of funding out there, plenty. And it might be something if African music and dance companies got together and formed their own IABD, right? IABD, great, we love you, Denise, but there's something that has to happen just for African music and dance companies to lift up, highlight, and maximize themselves and their own resources to the tech industry, to those people out there who have wealth. And there's plenty of Black and African wealth out there to access. Mama Sewa, can you take us out on that note in terms of what can we do? I'm sorry. Okay, Mama Sewa and then Mama Setwa. Can both of you take us out?
I just go
yes,
very short. I have found that when African dance attaches to social issues, you get more. There's more funding available. It wasn't until I began to attach to incarcerated women for African dance, then the floodgates opened up, and I'm talking major money. So I'm always telling my fellow artists, because African dance just can't be. We don't have the luxury of African dance just existing for African dance sake. We gotta be a part of the community. So if your issue is elders or children or homelessness or domestic violence or whatever issue that resonates with your company, if you would attach to that and work it through that angle, there's definitely more funding for that. And so my challenge is for African dance to become globalized. We got to get out of this bubble of just dancing for dance sake. We've got to be more accountable to the community, and you become more accountable when you try to help them satisfy certain needs that we have in our community.
But I would say also to Asetwa, I think all of you already do that work. It's the language.
Mm-hmm.
It's being able to have the language to translate and put on paper to say, this is what we do, why we do it. So there's plenty of research out there about dance and trauma, right? How dance actually works with children with disorders or mental disorders. So it's just a matter of making the connection to say, yes, this is what we do, this is what we've always done, and this is what it is on paper, and having the language to speak about it. So, and congratulations on your award. It was $400,000. Yes, I love it for the work you're doing with incarcerated women. So that is something that wasn't in your chapter. You should have said that. Um,
I know. I just.
Mama Sewa, are you there? Yeah,
Yes,
if you
I'm
could,
here.
what are your thoughts? And you having a company and artist and this whole thing we're talking about connecting African dance. And I'm not just going to say dance and music. I'm going to say African music and dance to trauma and social justice and many of the issues we're dealing houselessness, because I don't say homeless, I say houselessness people. What would you can you take us out, Mama Sewa? I know Sule and Kristen are like, oh my God, we gotta go. But Mama Sewa, can you take us home?
Okay, so I think that one of the big issues is that we tend to we don't work together. We don't work together, and I think that as different, different companies and groups of people, that we have to form more coalitions and work as a unit. Alone, we can't get anywhere. That in unity, there's strength. We also lack that language that you're talking about, because I find that in trying to get grants, there's not even a genre that they recognize as African dance. You're just considered folk. That's the genre that, and so we have to use our platform. Music and dance has a message. It has a message, and we have to utilize that message. We have to take advantage of captive audiences to engage in conversation, to instigate action, to provide empowerment and self-determination, and put all of that energy together, working together to not only deal with social issues, but to address our community. Because as you said, there are a lot of Black and brown people of color that actually do have money. And we need to address those people, because we're not really getting it from, it's always about who you know. And a lot of times we don't know the right people, but we know our own people. And I think that those are the people that we have to address and work together as a unit.
Okay. I don't know, I'm feeling full. I'm feeling full, and I feel like the conversation could continue on. And I know we have quite a few panelists, and there's quite a bit to talk about. But I appreciate every comment and every every thought and love and respect that was brought to this conversation from all of you. And I think on behalf of Kristen and Sule, does Kristen and Sule want to come and say something? Kristen, are you going to join us as our host?
Yes, ma'am. I'm here. I am here. Thank you all so much. It was a pleasure being here with all of this. Oh my goodness, it's like all of this respect here, all of the honor, all of my elders. One of the big things for me is being able to sit at my elders' feet, listen, and learn. Learn, like, what did you go through? How can we make things better, and how can we perpetuate African dance and drum to a better place, to a more solid place? And like we were talking about unity, those things are definitely at the forefront of what we possess. So before we go, I'm going to quote, I'm going to have another quote from Mama Kariamu in the conclusion of the book. And it says, "The Black dancing body in African dance is a center of integrity, strength, persistence, that is a center of values from the high road. The Black dancing body in the Americas had been the conduit of many traces that honor ongoing life and validity. African dances have been and continue to be traces that represent a continuity that empowers millions of people in the diaspora." Thank you all so much for joining us. We hope that you've enjoyed tonight's discussion. We had a couple of technical delays but we were able to film the entire thing, and we will be sharing it on our Facebook page as soon as this is over with. So please share it with your groups.
Thank you so much, everyone. Peace and blessings.